Ladies, welcome to an unfiltered podcast on real, raw subjects that will lead you to a greater level of intimacy, not only with yourself, but others as well. You're on the mic with Dr. Ace, the Global Mentor Coach, and I'm excited and thrilled to help you live your best life now. Living our best lives boils down to a few simple things, but one of the first things is getting real with ourselves about who we are and what we like. Today, I want to talk about the effect pornography has on intimacy. And you might think to yourself that, this isn't rocket science or that it's a no-brainer. And the truth is that many people have mixed views about it. I'm reading a book by William Struthers called Wired for Intimacy: How Pornography Hijacks the Male Brain. And while this book is written for men, there's a lot we can take away from it. And one of the first things that caught my eye while perusing the book is when he says, I began to notice how many of my friends and acquaintances, men who by all other accounts would have made fine boyfriends and husbands, sacrificed relationships with real women for the allure of an image of a woman on the magazine page or videotape of a couple having sex. Let's unpack this. Ladies, you will never be enough for a man who fantasizes about an idea. No matter what you do, you will not match up. You can be 99.99% close, and he will still pass you up for that fantasy woman in his mind. Period. And is it okay? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But that's what's happening. And I don't know how to best articulate what's happening in a guy's mind or a man's mind when he does this, because I'm not a guy. But I went and did some research. In one of the articles I found, this one in particular is on Fast Company, and it actually was talking about how porn was helping people cope with anxiety due to COVID-19. I'm not here to discuss the reasons or to debate them. I'm just putting forth the information. Here's a snippet of what the article talks about. Knowing that people use pornography to masturbate doesn't explain a great deal about why they might be using more porn now. And to back it up a little bit, this gentleman and some colleagues did some research about the effects of the use of pornography. And one of the main reasons of pornography use is masturbation, but it is not the only reason. And they found there were several additional reasons that people use porn. And one of those is psychological distress, often predicted higher use of pornography. People feeling lonely or depressed often report greater desire to seek out pornography. Many people report using pornography to cope with feelings of stress, anxiety, or negative emotions. In short, people often turn to pornography when they are feeling bad, because pornography and masturbation likely offer a temporary relief from those feelings. And temporary, they're not looking long term. Psychology researchers also know that people use porn more when they are bored. And you might be thinking, well, I'm not boring. Doesn't have anything to do with you. Maybe their use of pornography has to do with something beyond boredom. They may have stress and anxiety, negative emotions that have nothing to do with you. These things are catalysts. It's really unfortunate It really, 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 really is unfortunate. We can look at other things, but again, when we start talking about the effects that pornography have on relationships, it will affect your intimacy levels. People will say it doesn't. Absolutely not. It increases the chance of breaking up your relationship. It does. Because what happens is the person starts pulling away. They don't even realize it because they're sexually dissatisfied. You can flip it, throw it back. Arch game could be amazing, but that person is sexually dissatisfied because they've watched porn so much. You could have a great relationship, and temporarily porn may help stabilize an unsatisfying sex life, but long term, it's just generally not good. It interferes with intimacy. It interferes with a person's expectations surrounding sex. And I can prove this to you, just through personal experience. I can tell you, and I'll share my personal experience with you later on. But, it's just so crazy to see how people are really, really getting into just the whole thing. So I want to share with you, I found an article where a woman talks about being married to a porn addict. She says she walked in on her husband masturbating to a screen. And, of course, I can only imagine how awkward that was. And, but instead of her being offended, the woman actually began to apologize, but she didn't know what she was apologizing for. So that made her feel embarrassed even the more, not just for herself, but him and the whole situation. And when he was caught, he just, adjusted himself, slammed his computer shut, but kind of gave off this funny, uncomfortable laugh, like, ha, 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 and wanted to move on like it never happened. The woman goes on to talk about the fact that she wasn't angry, she wasn't bitter, she wasn't mad, she was just hurt. She was hurt seeing how much gratification he got from something, an image on a screen. And you might be saying, oh, she's just not having enough sex with her husband. In the article, I don't know how true it is, but she says she's not the typical have a headache wife about sex. And if anything, she's engaging or initiating sex more. But she says there were always signs there that she just chose to ignore, but it came to a head when, she literally walked in on him. And I really didn't mean that pun, but hey, it worked out. And you have to know that porn doesn't just affect the man. It affects you too. It affects your mind, your relationship. It really, 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 really affects a lot. And it's expensive. It's expensive. People spend thousands of dollars to experience this short-term high. They really do. And it's just really crazy that as a woman, we will take on that responsibility of, quote, fixing him or helping him or whatever the case may be. But when a person has an addiction or a problem, or when they turn to pornography and they would rather live in a fantasy world with these images and not face reality, that's a sign of a deeper problem. It affects the person's libido. Why? Because a good part of sexual intimacy is in the mind. It's mental. And so, listen, just know that it will affect your relationship. It will affect your relationship. How do I know this? Here's another thing. There is such a thing called revenge porn. First of all, there are different levels of porn. There's soft porn. There's everything from soft porn to hardcore and all the stuff in between. And there is a thing such as revenge porn. And during this time of isolation, people are experiencing greater an increase in revenge porn. What does that mean? People threaten and or actually will post damaging information, specifically pictures and videos of you, all because they're not coping and they want to get back at you. I'm reading an article now where the guy sent a text says, I have nothing but time and I will not stop until I ruin your life. Who's got that kind of time? But they do. All because she chose to end a 2-year relationship and he can't cope. And rather than go to therapy to work through it, it's, I'm going to be vindictive and get back at you. And I don't care. And how dare you take refuge in your new boyfriend and whatever the case may be. It's really toxic. And, revenge porn is real. And you cannot minimize it because people are literally out here contemplating suicide because of how vindictive people are. They're using pornography to get back at someone else, usually an ex who has chose to move on. And it's really scary. It's really, really scary and time consuming. And so you really want to think about, when you're in a relationship, think long term about sexting and the decisions you make. Maybe you make a sex tape, or you allow yourself to be filmed in certain ways. It's just a lot. So pornography will absolutely affect your relationship. Ladies, here's what I want you to understand about it, is that it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's not. So here's my personal experience with it. I had an ex who liked to watch porn. He did not have an addiction at that time, but he liked to watch it. It had a profound effect on his sexual expectations. I could throw it back, spin it, toss it, whatever. And while it was satisfying to an extent, it wasn't enough. He had ideas and fantasies that he wanted to fulfill, all of whom, or most of which stemmed from porn. These images, these ideas, these concepts scripted that someone came up with that said, "Ooh, this is going to make a great flick." And I wasn't the person, I definitely wasn't the person I am now, but I wasn't the kind of woman who was so rigid and prudish that, I wouldn't try it. No, I had no issue fulfilling some of his fantasies. But the more they became increasingly outrageous, I had to put my foot down. I didn't make the connection between his porn use and how it was affecting our relationship. The light bulbs turned on once when I sat with him and against my better judgment, but it ended up working in my favor, watched a film with him. I watched it. I was just like, okay, whatever is what you want to do. It works for you. Okay. And that's when the wheels in my mind started spinning. Was like, you know what? This is where that came from. And he definitely had a type, because every type of porn that he watched, it was a type. It was just, it just had a theme to it. It was really crazy. It had a rhythm, if you will. And it affected our relationship and our ability to connect on a deeper level. We couldn't have a conversation without sex somehow creeping in. And I mean, we could be talking about something where somebody had major surgery, or, something happened, in the community, and, somebody was fundraising, or we could be talking about sports, like, basketball, whatever. Somehow sex would find its way into the conversation. He lacked the ability to connect beyond sex. And eventually that became boring because he got stuck in a routine. And it was his choice to follow the flow and rhythm of the videos that he watched rather than respond to me. And it was really monotonous. And I could easily predict what would come next. And when I would try to introduce something different, he would do it, but he would reluctantly go with it. But how satisfying is that? It's not satisfying. And so, ladies, what I want to say to you is that we are definitely wired different from men. We are sexual beings. That's without a doubt. That is the truth. I'm not arguing against that. What I'm saying is that you have to have some standards for yourself. And it starts with being intimate with yourself. You have to have a deep, abiding connection with yourself first. What do you like? What do you want? What matters to you? When you're in a relationship, what turns you on? See, when you know what you want, you establish those boundaries from the beginning, and then you know how to weed through people who don't qualify based off of what you want, what you like, your preferences. You don't need to be wasting your time with anybody who isn't going to satisfy you or who isn't going to value or appreciate you for who you are. When you're with somebody that's always measuring you to this image, all it's going to do is tear you down mentally and wear you down because you take ownership of a situation that's not your problem. You're not at the root or the heart of it. You have to know that as a woman, you are more than enough, and you better not ever let anyone tell you different. You have got the goods, sister. You don't need to try to live up to fantasy or some ideal in somebody's mind that isn't realistic for you. If that's what he wants, sugar, let him go find it. It's too many people on this planet for you to feel like, oh, there's only one person on earth for me. That's not realistic. So it's like Struthers says, men will pass up a perfectly good woman for a fantasy that, here, in my opinion, they may not even qualify for, let alone be able to get. And I'm okay with guys shooting for the moon, shoot for the stars, but don't get mad when you land hard on concrete. So ladies, don't take a man's desire for porn personally. In some regards, men's fascination with porn stems from emotional wounds. It's something deeper. They're looking for an escape, and the fantasy that porn provides them is a short-term high. Until they are willing and they want to deal with the deeper issue, sis, move on. You have to love, value, and appreciate yourself more than your need to help fix this man or support him when he shows you that he's not up to doing the work necessary to deal with the deeper issue. And that issue may be the psychological issue or issues that shape how he views himself and why he may feel the need to protect his vulnerability for being exploited. Because men fear being exploited. They fear their vulnerability being used against them. So it's classic projection and deflection. Now, if that man's willing to do the work, he wants to get to the root of it. He wants to figure this thing out. That's a judgment call you have to make. Is it worth you sticking around? How much have you invested in the relationship up to this point? If it's just a hookup, who cares? You're not going to care anyway. You're going to do whatever. But if you're looking for true intimacy, a deep, abiding connection with another person, a place, until you get to that point, you probably can't answer these questions. But it definitely is a judgment call for you. Is it worth you sticking around? How much have you seriously invested in the relationship? Time, money, energy, emotion, whatever. Because whatever your decision is, you have to know that it is not selfish to put yourself first. Because self-care matters. Self-care matters. So don't own someone else's insecurity. Don't do that to yourself, ladies. You're worth more than that. Way, way more. Ladies, you've been on the mic with Dr. Ace, the Global Mentor Coach. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have some topics you'd like to hear, or if you need a coach to help you achieve your goals, send me an email to info@globalmentorcoach.com. Again, that's info@globalmentorcoach.com. Thank you so much for listening. Keep it sexy, keep it classy, and keep it modest as you ladies spread lots of love and light.